Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, I am back. We've also got Nick in attendance once again here. He's been steering the ship alone, but now we're back as a duo, and we're going to be going on today with our SmackDown recap from this past Friday. How about we break things down and get into all the action that took place on Friday Night SmackDown, starting off with the return of Bianca Belair, the EST of WWE, back in a WWE ring once again, although not in a in-ring capacity. She would come down basically through the crowd of, through the arena, serenaded by her hometown audience. And she would basically just say it's really good to be back. She would say it's great to be back in her hometown. So she's needed time off to get her head straight. A lot's gone on for her in the last few months. She's lost her friend. She's lost everything that's important to her basically, and she's got she's really had to sort of realize exactly what's important to her now, and basically just try and come to terms with everything that's taken place. So she'd have a little bit of a sort of nice time in the ring, I think is a good way of putting it. And she said that she's working hard to be back to full health, but she's not quite there yet. She's almost there. It wouldn't take too long before Naomi, one of the people that she was referencing about losing, would come on down and basically get up on her face. She would attempt to mend things with Bianca Belair. Bianca wasn't having any of it, though. It was more of a case of, Naomi just trying something, hoping it would work. And, after everything that they've been through and all the shenanigans and stuff, yeah, Bianca, she wasn't up for any of it, any of what Naomi was selling. So it got to a point where Naomi realizes that what she's doing is pointless, is worthless, not worth the effort. So then she turns on a dime. She basically ends up sort of insulting Bianca Belair, basically saying how it would be a shame for her to end up in a wheelchair like her mum is at the moment, which is obviously quite a cold line, to be fair. Her mum was at ringside, and she was actually in her wheelchair, just in the front row, sort of thing, just to witness the segment. So there's sort of a very clear reference to that. But the two basically got into a little bit of a stare down, and it wouldn't take too long before Jade Cargill would come on down. She would clear Naomi from the ring, and then we'd have Nia Jax insert herself just before their match is about to take place. It would be a women's triple threat contest to see who would qualify for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Let's go straight into that one then. So, as I just mentioned, Naomi, Nia Jax, Jade Cargill, triple threat to qualify for Money in the Bank. And this would actually see Naomi come out victorious in the end. It was quite an entertaining matchup. There were a lot of intricate sort of moments where all three of them were involved in particular ways, at the same time. They tried a lot during this matchup, but I think it worked for the most of it. It was a little bit sort of clumsy at times, but I think the pros outweighed the cons here, I would say, in the triple threat. But yeah, it was a good matchup. You had Nia Jax looking for the Annihilator on Naomi and Jade Cargill at the same time. Naomi managed to get out of the way and roll out the way. She'd then roll up Nia Jax, and then that would be enough to score the 1-2-3 and to book her spot at Money in the Bank. So Naomi with a win. Personally, I think that's a pretty good result there from just my standpoint. I was hoping Naomi would get into that match. I think the work that she's been putting in recently has been top tier, and it's nice to see her being rewarded with a PLE opportunity. Who else? Who knows what else could be following from that one? But good match. I think the right winner in my perspective, and Naomi is added to a very stacked picture of the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Going on from there, we would see a little bit of a backstage segment between R-Truth, Solo Sikoa, Jay Fatu, and JC Mateo, and it would basically be R-Truth just chatting away to who I can only assume is Little Jimmy, who is still around, but he's there when he wants to be. And eventually, R-Truth would basically just stand up to JC Mateo and say that he looks a little husky. How about he goes down to the ring and puts him in his place. And it wasn't the greatest idea from R-Truth, because that match would take place pretty much right after that little conversation, and JC Mateo would defeat R-Truth. It wasn't the longest match; it was pretty short. It wasn't the shortest you'll ever see, but it was a quick based thing. The match itself was basically just to see how dominant JC Mateo could be, and I think they basically did that correctly. Him picking up the victory over R-Truth in a short time, and they would sort of try and add insult to injury afterwards, where they sort of like continued to attack R-Truth once the match was over. But Jimmy Uso would come down, and he would come to the aid of R-Truth, stopping the attacks from going further on. And he would come to the aid of him and basically just rescue him from the situation. So yeah, it was a little segment getting a few people involved there. Jason Mateo continuing to look pretty impressive since he's come into WWE. And R-Truth, off the back of the loss to John Cena at Saturday's main event, I guess he hasn't really stopped. He's just slotted straight back into what was happening beforehand. So very easy slot back in there. Coming off from that, we'd have the Street Profits coming down to the ring. They would basically just talk about how many teams are currently after them. And the SmackDown roster is very, very impressive right now. There's a whole lot of tag teams, a whole lot of quality, and a whole lot of threats to their championships. And they would mention the Wyatts after their vicious attack last week during their match with Fraxium for the tag team titles. It wouldn't take long for Fraxium to come on down. They would basically say, oh, well, if you're handing out opportunities, we're not done. We still want our shot. Last week didn't end properly, so how about we run this back one more time? MCMG, Motor City Machine Guns, they wouldn't take too long either to come on down after that. And they would basically say, well, hold on, we deserve an opportunity here because, neither of you teams have beaten us. So that was a telling little bit of information there. We then would have DIY show up, and they would say that it would be them who deserves a title match. That the other two teams, they don't deserve anything. And then shortly after that, we would then have the Wyatt Six come on down, and they would decimate everyone. They would take down all four teams, and they would stand tall at the end of the segment after all the carnage, all the brutality, and they would be the one standing tall, posing into camera. So, Nick, what do you think? SmackDown's, first half, I guess we could say. A lot going on. Money in the Bank qualifiers. Bianca's back, kind of, sort of. JC Mateo continues to be impressive as he can. And then the Wyatt Six decimating the entire tag team division on SmackDown again. Well, most of it anyway. Most of the tag team division on SmackDown once again. How did you find the first half?
Yeah, it's good to see Bianca back. It has to be done with her being in her hometown of Knoxville. I, for one, love the internet tactics here by Naomi. I think she pulls them off quite nicely. You can tell she's saying one thing and her eyes are saying something else. So I thought that was a nice segment as well. And as you kind of mentioned, some pretty cold remarks there from Naomi. I think in typical heel fashion. I think that had to be approved by Bianca. So I'm all for it. And to me, Jade coming out here as well, getting the upper hand as she so often does, seemingly in this feud. And I think this feud is between these three ladies. I think has to happen. And maybe at SummerSlam, I would love to see the three of them resolve their differences if Bianca is healthy by then. But they've been cooking this one up for a while. Nia Jackson coming in to for her match as well with the three here qualifying attempting to qualify for the Money in the Bank match, the fifth of six on the women's side, and Naomi getting the win here. I think kind of the way she did it, moving out of the way of the Annihilator and then rolling up Nia for the pin. I'm glad it wasn't Jade that took the pin, so that's good news. I am going to mention something here. I'm going to start keeping track of them because the issue within WWE is by far the biggest issue right now, and that's every single match or close to getting a roll-up or interference, whether that be, ending the match or causing an end to the match. I'm going to start keeping track of that. So this was the first one of those being a roll-up pin. So one of the two issues here. Outside of that, Naomi in the win here, I think is the right call, and looking forward to what she can do in the Money in the Bank ladder match. And I think she'll be one of the favorites going in. R-Truth and JC Mateo. Yeah, I did not have that on my bingo card. For me, the backstage segment was better than the match. Obviously, anything R-Truth does on the mic is usually pretty quality. In terms of the actual match, it wasn't a squash match, but it also wasn't far from it. JC Mateo obviously is going to be booked very strong going forward, and it's going to be a while before he eats a loss, I would assume. This, like I said, it wasn't much to it other than JC Mateo continuing his dominance. Then we get the tag kind of promo here with the Street Profits showing off all the teams like Fraxium, MCMG, and DIY. I particularly love the DIY moment of silence bit. Those are always great in terms of asking the audience to be quiet, and especially when it comes to a rowdy crowd like this one here in Knoxville. Obviously, the moment of booze instead. I thought that was great. The Wyatt Six bit coming in, taking out what I will call, the most dominant division in WWE. You kind of touched on this last week, and that you were happy to see Wyatt Six back, as am I. But I think both of us are kind of on a similar page as to, okay, now what? And that being outside of their pretty incredible debut as a team, they really haven't done too much since. And so putting them in the tag division, I think, is great. Probably the best place they would work. My concern is, where do they fall in this already overbooked, I don't say overbooked, very crowded division already. So I wonder if maybe it would have been better served on Raw. But regardless, tons of teams here. My biggest fear is that they come in to take out what SmackDown has been building for so long in this incredible tag division. So hopefully that's not. But yeah, interested to see where they take the Wyatt Six from here.
Yeah, I did say something similar, and I think back a week ago it was more of, okay, great, they're back, and like you just mentioned a moment ago, great, they're back, but what are they doing? And I think until they reveal what it is that they're wanting to achieve and to go by here, it's very much a case of everything's up in the air, and it's like, well, the last time we saw them, they were fending off people who, had turned their backs on friends, family, whatever, people close to them. So this is very, very different. And I think, you don't just go away for like however many months it was. It was quite a lot. I want to say about 5-6 months, maybe more, and then come back and then be completely different and then not have any explanations for it. So obviously it's early and they've still got time. But I think the quicker that we get some sort of answer and some sort of explanation here, and then I think that's the better thing for it, because then we're all on the same page. We know what's going down and we know what the situation is. But for now, it's very much guesswork, and we're like, okay, great, cool, but what are we doing here? I think that's my main issue, and I think you're sort of alluding to the same thing there. But hopefully, in a couple of weeks' time, whatever, we're at a point where they've explained themselves, they've laid out their foundations and their ideologies, and then we know what's going down. So I guess we'll just see what happens. Going on to the second half of SmackDown, we still got a few more things to cover and discuss here. How about we start off with what followed from after the decimation of the tag teams, and we had a tag team match. But it wasn't your average tag team match that you will see on a regular SmackDown. We had the young OG, Javon Evans from NXT. He would be coming up here as sort of like a way of getting people to know who he is if you haven't already seen Javon Evans, ahead of Worlds Collide next week. So that's the obviously partnership between WWE and AAA. After the acquisition last month, almost a couple of months ago now. But basically, he would be teaming with Rey Fenix, and they would be taking on Los Garza. This was a nice tag team match. I quite enjoyed it. For those who haven't seen Javon Evans, it was a little taste of what he can really do. We didn't see 100% of Javon, but we saw a good 60-70%, I would say. A nice little taster if, people liked what they saw, they can obviously see him on NXT. And then we got Rey Fenix as well, working this up and just being as consistent as he has been. Los Garza, though, I think every time these guys are given an opportunity to go, they really can go. I was impressed with what I saw from Los Garza again during this matchup. I think these are quite an underrated team. I've never really been their biggest fans, but I think the work they've been putting in the last 6-7 months, I think they've really stepped up and they've really started to hone their craft, which is quite nice to see. So I hope to see a bit more of them going forward. But they will get the win here in this matchup, which is quite important because I don't remember the last time they had a big win. Not saying this is a big win, but this is at least a win on TV, which everybody is looking for at some point. But Javon, no harm in losing here on his main roster debut. Not a problem. There was a whole lot of interference. We had Santos Escobar on the outside, obviously sticking up for Los Garza. We also had Ethan Page, the NXT North American champion. He would be on the outside as well, and he would actually play big assist here and distracting, I think it was Rey Fenix, in order to cost Javon and Rey the win here. So there was a whole lot going on. Santos and Rey and Ethan Page sort of like collaborating and interfering in their own ways to set up the victory for Los Garza. But it builds it kind of nicely towards the NXT North America Championship Fatal 4-Way match that will take place at Worlds Collide. And that involves Rey Fenix and Javon Evans in that one, alongside Ethan Page. moving on then, let's go over to Zelina Vega. She was in action, the Women's United States Champion, up against Alba Fire. This is stemmed from a backstage segment. Chelsea Green, she got a pretty big knock to her face, to be fair. Like, really badly bruised, damaged nose, broken, whatever it is. That's obviously what happened at the back of Saturday Night's main event, where Zelina Vega would box the 619 and kick Chelsea in the face as a result of just wanting to get something done afterwards. And yeah, Chelsea obviously paying the price for that. The segment backstage was Chelsea couldn't get in the ring and compete, so Alba Fire was basically chosen by Chelsea to go for it herself. Chelsea would try to interfere in the match to cost Zelina Vega to assist Alba Fire with the win, but alas, it backfired, and Zelina Vega once again had the number of Chelsea, Alba, and Piper, and she would get the victory and defeat Alba Fire. I'm not going to say that this is a waste of time, but what are we doing with this whole segment? With this whole story, is it because there's no one else, like in terms of a heel on the mid-card scene on SmackDown? Is it because there's no other options? Because I don't know what the end goal here is. Yeah, they've had Zelina Vega win the US title, but she's beaten Chelsea like twice since then, and she's had victories over Alba and Piper. She's got another victory over Alba now. I just feel like we're going around the circles. We're treading water for a bit, and there's no real sort of like advancement in sight as to what the next step is for any of these women really in this story. I couldn't tell you. It just seems like we're just going around and we're doing the same thing each week, but we're changing things up a little bit here and there. I feel like that's where it's very stagnant at the moment. So whether a backstage segment with Julia after this matchup is a little bit of a foresight to say what could be coming next, I don't know. But if that is the case, then I hope that comes very, 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 very soon. And like by that, I mean like in the next couple of weeks, because we are not going anywhere with this right now. And it just seems to be just the same every week with a little bit of change. Like I've said already. The match itself was fine. It was okay. It did what it needed to do, I suppose. But I just wish we could move on from this as soon as possible, because if they're not giving Chelsea the title back, just move on. Because they're clearly not going to put on Alba or Piper, because they're making them look stupid every single week. And they're continuing to do that this week. So, enough said about that. Let's move along now to Damian Priest. He would come out and cut a promo, basically passing respect to Drew McIntyre. Very interesting remarks from Damian. He would basically say that the man that he was inside the steel cage with at Saturday Night's main event was somebody that he can respect, and it wasn't the Drew McIntyre that has basically been involved in a feud with him over the last like how long, like 1 to 2 years or so. Yeah, he would say that he's not going to say exactly what's next for him, but he's looking at targeting championships. He's looking to capture something very soon, you know, if possible. And he's got his eyes on the biggest dog, which is Jacob Fatu. He would basically highlight Jacob, saying that how you know, he's impressed by him and what he's been doing recently, and that he wants to come after the United States Championship at some point down the line. As Damian would be leaving the ring, he would walk on up to the ramp. He would actually get passed by Jacob Fatu, who was on his way down to the ring for his upcoming match in just a couple of moments later. So a little bit of an interaction between the two, a little bit of a stare down before Damian would continue to walk on back and Jacob would go down to the ring. We would then have a triple threat contest for a men's Money in the Bank ladder match qualifying spot. Jacob Fatu up against Andrade, up against Carmelo Hayes, to see who goes to Money in the Bank. This was a fun match. Really enjoyed this contest. Triple threat was fantastic. The Miz, he was at ringside with Carmelo Hayes for the early parts. There would be an interaction with Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu would lay out Miz, and he would not be seen after the next commercial break, saying that he'd been taken back by the medical team to be assessed and whatnot after Jacob's attack. But regardless, the match just left the three of them up until JC Mateo and Solo Sikoa would come on down to the ring towards the late stages, and Jacob Fatu basically had it won. He had Andrade laid out. Solo gets up on the apron, as does JC Mateo, and they're sort of like commanding him to do more, to hit another moonsault, to do this, to do that. Jacob Fatu looks very confused, looks a little bit almost as if like, well, why are you telling me this for? I don't need your advice. I don't need you telling me what to do. I don't need you telling me what to do. I got this handled. By the time he had this handled, Andrade, a couple of moments later, would actually have Carmelo Hayes just in the ring to himself, and he would get the victory by hitting the message and getting the 1-2-3. Andrade qualifying for the Money in the Bank Money in the Bank ladder match. And honestly, I think that's a really good decision. I think it was either him or Carmelo Hayes. I would have been happy with either, to be honest. As long as it wasn't Fatu, he's got the United States Championship. He doesn't need to have Money in the Bank as well. So, yeah, this was a really good call, and happy for Andrade. Big PLE spot for him in the Money in the Bank ladder match. I'm sure he'll have a good couple of moments in that contest as well, and who knows what will happen as well. But, yeah, great triple threat. Really enjoyed this one. And for me personally, yeah, the right winner. I would have been happy with him or Mello, but Andrade is good, for sure. Then we will go into our closing segment, main event, whatever we're calling the last little segment of the show. And we would have Cody Rhodes coming on back. So he would obviously appear at Saturn's main event, coming down to aid Jey Uso in that match against Logan Paul, fending off John Cena as well at the time. Yeah, Cody, you get pretty warm ovation, to be honest. It didn't really last too long before he would sort of say that the crowd deserves a surprise. Maybe deserves something a little bit more, something a little bit extra on the show. And the crowd already knew what he was talking about anyway. They already started yeeting. Jey Uso comes down, yeets for a while, does his entrance, whatever. And then it isn't too long after that that Jey is interrupted by John Cena. So John Cena comes down to the ring. He actually does manage to say a couple of things. He basically calls Uso and Cody Rhodes wannabes before bringing out Logan Paul. So obviously this is a tag team match that's taking place at Money in the Bank. Cena and Logan versus Cody and Jey Uso. And yeah, he brings out Logan Paul. Yeah, the fans were getting quite loud. They weren't too happy about it. Logan, they didn't really give him any time to speak, sort of thing. But after Logan did start to say some things, Jey Uso was saying, we don't have to wait until Money in the Bank. We can start off right here, right now. We can have a fight. Cena and Paul would have a bit of an argument about whether they were going to go into this and follow up with it. Before Rhodes would weigh in, basically saying how, what are you going to do? Go polish his Peacemaker? A brawl would then sort of happen straight afterwards, and Cody and Jey would stand tall to end Friday Night SmackDown. So yeah, the second half, definitely an interesting one, definitely very up and down in my opinion. But what did you think, Nick? We got that tag team match, Zelina and Alba. You got more to say about that one? Maybe some good stuff, perhaps, on your end. Then the triple threat contest, I'm sure you'll be happy with that one with Andrade getting the win. And then what did you reckon of that main event, the last closing segment of the show?
All right, Los Garza of Legado del Fantasma versus Rey Fenix and Javon Evans. Yeah, the definition of a hot tag here with Javon Evans taking a ton of offense from Los Garza. And yeah, you kind of alluded to it too. I think Los Garza is great in that I was a fan the first time they were on main. I think they both have, Angel and Berto, both have a lot of potential and do some great character work as well as in-ring work. Obviously, maybe on the mic is their weakness here, but I think that's kind of what, why they're in the faction they are with Santos. So I think it works. I just wish they would get away from this never-ending story where they seem to always kind of lump together the Hispanic talent. But for now, I thought this match was good in getting them a win. And yeah, I thought Javon Evans kind of took a lot more offense than I thought he would. But I guess if you look at the big picture of things here, he's not on main, whether you view NXT as being equal parts to main roster or not. Yeah, I think him taking most of the offense, I guess, would make sense. You certainly don't want Rey Fenix, who's already on the main roster and has eaten a couple pins already. You certainly don't want him taking a bunch of that, and especially not the pin. But yeah, also, as you alluded to, definitely Javon Evans not at 100% here in terms of what he's putting out. He's definitely holding back a little bit, because if he wasn't, especially with this rowdy crowd, you would have known it. Yeah, definitely not seeing all that we can from Javon Evans. But yeah, I thought this was a good match for what it was. Unfortunately, going to put one more on our counter here, as Ethan Page and Santos Escobar kind of a play off of one another and then end up assisting Los Garza to get the win here over Javon and Rey Fenix. So Yeah, that's the second one already, but I think the grand overall picture here was simply North American title on NXT picture, kind of promoting that here this weekend at the AAA Worlds Collide event. And then the Alba Fire and Delina Vega match, I think, yeah, you kind of mentioned most of what I had to say. Unfortunately, the highlight for me was probably the Swanton Bomb from Alba, and I'm sure I'm not alone. But every time I see an Alba Fire match, I just think of what once was, and kind of makes me sad a little bit. But regardless, the match here, another interference by Chelsea and Piper, albeit not a successful one, but it did end up hitting. It did end up causing the end of the match, which was Selena getting the code red on Alba to get the win. Um, yeah, you kind of said it best. Let's just give the Chelsea the title back, or let's move on. And you mentioned as well the Julia tease was nice, as it could indicate something new. Unfortunately, I don't like the implication that this could potentially have on her appearance on Money in the Bank. But yeah, one more marker for the interference, and that would get that up to 3. Jacob, or excuse me, Damian Priest coming in and saying that he respects Drew. That's a choice, I guess. Don't really think it does much for him. But then afterwards, saying he's going after Jacob Fatu, or mentioning that he has a lot of respect for Jacob Fatu, and then we see them kind of lock eyes on their way out and in. Jacob Fatu on his way in for the triple threat qualifier for the Money in the Bank, the 5th of the 6th on the men's side. And yeah, this was an incredible match, as you kind of would expect, with the 3 guys involved. I think Andrade getting the win here, I think it's a great call. I think it had to either be him or Carmelo. I think both benefit heavily. I would argue maybe Carmelo would even be benefit him even more. But that being said, I'm not complaining at all to see Andrade. I think he's heavily underutilized talent and one of my favorites. So happy to see him in there. We'll see what kind of chaos he can cause at the Money in the Bank ladder match. And then, yeah, a couple other things. One thing I didn't know was the tables shouting, "We want tables" for what felt like half the match. I felt like that took away a bit from the match these guys were putting on for us. So kind of annoyed at that. But if they have tables for you, they'll let you know. And Carmelo, of course, teasing the crowd. But yeah, a little too much of that, I think. And then, yeah, another interference. Solo coming down after he hits a moonsault on Andrade, what could potentially have been the end of the match. Solo telling him to hit another one. So continuing that storyline there, I think it's great. Can't wait to see the feud of Jacob Fatu and Solo. Just a matter of when. So we'll see where that goes from here. And the main event segment, which features Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Logan Paul, and John Cena. Yeah, I don't have a ton to add that you haven't already kind of hit, but I thought Cena giving the endorsement to Logan was great. Um, say what you will about Logan, but if he was a full timer, I think his ceiling would not exist. So I think that's a great boost for him. And then the polishing his Peacemaker line, I thought that was great as well. If you haven't already seen that, Peacemaker with John Cena is an incredible show, and you should absolutely give it a shot. That being said, yeah, this segment was way too long. Clocking in, I think, around 30 minutes is truly insane. That's Undertaker and Rock territory, right? When half of their entrance was just getting to the ring. Obviously, you have some long entrances here with Cody, especially, and but even still, like that's way too long. And I think the last qualifier with the men's probably should have been the actual main event, and this maybe could have. I don't know where you put this. It's just too long, and I know a lot of the guys here in this particular segment. Neither of us cared too much for some being different, but regardless, I don't feel like this added a ton to what the match is going to be this Saturday. At least that's my opinion. Yeah, hopefully we'll just get this over with and move on. Everyone can move on from here. For the match or excuse me, the event overall, I feel like this one definitely took a step back from last week's show. Like I said, main event promo took way too long, and the constant finishes being either interference and or roll-ups. The last man win being the fourth. So 4 out of 5 matches tonight ended in a interference, either attempt or successful or not, and or roll-up. So it's 4 out of 5 matches. WWE has a serious problem with how they end their matches. But yeah, I'm excited for Andrade to see where he goes from here. Another bit that I noted that was quite odd was, and they were announcing the AAA card for Worlds Collide. They just casually mentioned that Vicaria was now part of the Raw main roster. So a bit of anticlimactic there, and I think WWE, if that, I think they went in the wrong direction here. I think they could have done something really big with that on Raw. But that being said, it is what it is. Yeah. So unfortunately, I think the cons outweigh the pros on here. Give this one a 6.5 out of 10. And I do feel like that's being a bit generous considering how much I've complained here. But yeah, it's not the 3-hour shows. It's the way they're booking the matches. I have no problem with the 3-hour shows. I enjoy them for what they are. They just have to, I think, make a few better booking decisions. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, 6.5 out of 10. Not terrible, not great, but that's what I got.
Okay, so both on the same wavelength then. I also gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Yeah, one of those SmackDowns that I think definitely had some good moments, but just really inconsistent for the majority. I think just those like couple of downers, especially with Zelina and Alba for me personally. And then the main event scene that I'm not really too keen on at the moment, so I'm hoping that things can change in that department very, very soon. But yeah, just an up and down show, and one of those things that I think, sometimes we just gotta wait until the next event and we go from there. Money in the Bank is a week away, so one more SmackDown, one more Raw in the meantime. We'll see what the landscape's like after that. We can go from there. But yeah, not the best show. Not too fond of it, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, a couple of good things for sure. Okay, so there you go, guys. That is our SmackDown recap for this past Friday. If you guys agree or disagree with anything that we've said here, please let us know in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking, and yeah, what you all thought of Friday Night SmackDown. If you like the content that we're putting out here, then please hit a like on the video and subscribe to our channel to keep up with future releases going forward. We'll be back next with a Monday Night Raw recap coming up early in the week. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning on into The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you very much, guys, and goodbye.